Hello, everybody, and welcome to the MCOM Iron to Platinum Tournament, also known affectionately as the Low Elo Training Grounds. My name is Midnight, and joining me today for our first week and a best of three as well is Casual.
Hey Midnight, how you going? And hey to the chat. So exciting to be here. It's about time, honestly. I feel like everyone's just been rearing to go. It's our first real proper Iron to Plat tournament, circuit, training grounds, whatever. I feel like we're all so excited. We're just coming up with 1,000 names for it. Doesn't matter. At the end of the day, we're here to watch a great series of games. Best of three with two cracking teams. I just want to get straight into it. Let's go.
Yeah, I'm very excited, and what I will say I love is the fact that it's best of threes. Typically, you get best
Yeah.
of ones in tournaments. We're finally
Yeah.
seeing BO3s where we get to see teams adapt. They're going to have to deal with new challenges and come up with solutions on the fly. And I think,
Yeah.
speaking of that, I think it's a good time, Casual, to talk a little bit about the format and, of course, the teams that are going to be
Yeah.
participating in this tournament.
Yeah, let's do it. We've got an awesome scene that we can pop up for everyone now in terms of our groups. For those of you that did actually miss out, there was a previous stream on MCOM TV actually deciding these groups. I believe there were two particular teams, Mayhem, that kind of like gym class, which, I'll try and contain my emotions about. They picked each team's where they should go. So there's a bit of strategy when it came to what the allotments actually looked like. But so far, we've got new faces, we've got old faces. There's a whole bunch of different things. We've got older orgs, new orgs. Like, there's really a lot here when it comes to it. The older orgs I'm sort of referencing are your classics, right? You've got Gogiyero, you've got Weekend Warriors, of course, got MCOM, absolute veterans of the scene, and of course, hosting this tournament with a couple teams sprinkled in here. Then you've got some newer situations with Vespertine and Ches Professional, places that we haven't really seen but have come up with fancy new rosters. And often it's really a case of that David and Goliath, that old versus new, and it's really fun in terms of a storyline to see what can our veterans actually come up with in what is a very, very different game. If you think back, Midnight, to our Iron to Gold, to that golden era of this Iron to Plat scene, we're in a whole different ball ground right now. You know what I mean? Like, it really is anyone's game, and sometimes it might be that the newer faces are the ones with the better sense of where to go.
I mean, David versus Goliath is one of my favorite stories, so I will admit I'm
Isn't
kind
it
of hoping
good?
to see that a little bit there. And speaking of
Yeah.
what we're going to see here, let's take a look at the week one of games. Unfortunately, we can only be here for one of them, and we will be
Yep.
visiting Group B for today. But as you can see on your screens, guys, these are the week one game, but we are specifically going to be focusing on the Weekend Warriors up against Evo.
Yeah, Weekend Warriors versus Evo. Absolutely awesome to see both of these teams. Let's start with Evo, actually. So they've got a really, really interesting looking roster. You might recognize some of the names, potentially not all. Purple Smurf has been around. You were saying just in the behind the scenes, Midnight, that he's got a very, very crazy pick in some crit trundle. Now, actually rotating himself into the mid lane. So tickle me impressed if he manages to pull Trundle out and make that work in mid lane. But still, what I see from a player like that is a lot of flavor and a lot of creativity. So there's plenty to do with that in today's meta in mid lane. You can pick almost anything in the mid lane, similar to support where we see pretty much every single ADC. So really excited to see how he adapts there. And then moving across the map as well, we've got Wisp playing in AD carry. Has role swapped previously in his Iron to Plat experience. Been around for a couple tournaments. Finds himself in the AD carry role alongside Captain Aggressive, who has been a long-standing VSP and Evo team player sitting in support. Average ranks are kind of sitting in your high gold, just under platinum. So really that middle ground when it comes to skill level and macro knowledge in regards to the tournament. And for them, they're coming up against a very, very strong opponent, pardon me, potentially tournament favorites in Weekend Warriors, Midnight. Do you want to take us through their roster?
Well, I can take you through the roster, but as history is dictated, I am not allowed to show this team any bias whatsoever because history is not kind to me when I do so.
I see that.
The roster does look very different to what I'm used to. Then
Yeah,
again, I haven't
yeah,
seen this roster in over a year. The one that, though, I'm still
yeah.
going to be looking at is Nova in the mid lane. Nova has been around for about as long as I have at this point, it feels like. And he is mostly consistent. He does have some games where he decides sending it at 150 kilometers an hour is the solution to the problem. But
It
no,
is.
all times at all, Nova is usually solid enough that I would
Yeah.
like to see them play around this mid lane purely for the basis of I don't really know how strong the rest of this Weekend Warriors lineup is.
Yeah, well, to answer your question, pretty darn strong, actually. You've got some particular veterans in terms of the organization, also just previous Iron to Plat circuits and tournaments in their bot lane, in Gaydads and Baki. Names that everyone should know. They've been a strong duo for a long, long time, and they find themselves in that rare situation where they've been one of the few duos in Iron to Plat to actually stay together. And as I'll always say in terms of my analysis, it's the synergy that really prevails over anything. You can draft the Exodia comp, you can pick the strongest champs in the meta, build the best items, but it really is down to how you synergistically play together as a unit. And so I really, really trust in this roster to actually do that. Now, hopefully I'm not, throwing my foot in my mouth saying that, but I am expecting for their gameplay to be bot lane centric just due to that fact. And what I really, really like is their ability to do so in a really fantastic weak side warrior in Shelfie. And I will always be biased towards a weak side player as I am one myself. Really, really strong on all of the tanks right now. Actually pros the Gnar usually. Looking at this match history has popped that up more than anything else. But so many tanks, so many options in the top lane these days. So I imagine that not many resources will go towards Swelfie, and that will give Weekend Warriors an absolute world of choice where it comes to where they send their jungler Penguin Domo, and where they want to allocate that resources. Like you mentioned, do they want to get Nova on some sort of carry champ? Maybe make him neutral and let Gaydads explode and take over the game. We'll have to see.
Yeah, and I'm quite excited to see how teams are going to draft because obviously today is the first day of 13.7. So these teams
Yep.
are looking at the nerf list, and there are a few champions there that I
What
think
changes?
are being should be at least considered. Which of course the Vi is, I think, really something that junglers, especially when you're looking competitive, Vi has been ridiculously popular. Are these
Oh,
players going to
all the
look at the
time.
Vi changes and be like, well, do we run away from them? Do we continue running it? And the one I would love to see, Azir, and all of the times being told that you need to max W first with this patch. Will it
Yeah.
come up? I know with the changes of Rod of Ages, there is a serious talk that, hey, it could be a thing. These Roa champions getting more and more popular. So I
Yeah.
would like to see the Azir rise up a little bit too.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to. Azir's so fun and so interactive when it comes to how he wants to play these team fights out, especially in Iron to Plat. Has always really been about those big, explosive team fights, right? And in a dragon-centric meta as well, we're seeing more of those than ever before too. So Azir, I'd love to see picked up. If I had to make a bet midnight on which mid laner would pick it up, probably most likely Nova. I feel like that's usually where he's probably going to go. He loves those control mages, and that's his closest bet to that. But really is anyone's game. I love a new patch because it means that coaches especially put under the pump. They're not used to what's always been picked, all those VODs, all the research. You kind of have to bin it and start again. And I think Riot's been really consistent in making these patches actually matter. Now, it's up to debate whether we think they're good changes or bad changes. Think ASOL, right? But at least things are changing. So with very little time, we're probably going to see some experimentation, not just only in draft, but actually play out on the Rift in front of our eyes.
Yeah, I mean, you brought up the champion that when we got into picks and bans was the one I was going to fixate on most, the Aurelion Soul. That thing
Yeah.
is vile, even with the nerfs it has
Mm.
gone through. Now you can say skill issue. I have never won against an Aurelion Soul, not in lane, not in
Interesting.
game, not in existence. So I would
Okay.
very much like to see that champion not be either banned or first picked. But
Mm.
obviously, that comes with the worry of if most people are going to look at the Aurelion Soul, and to my experience, they do you have something in your back pocket that can deal with the Aurelion Soul? Because if you can put that Space Dragon down and not let it get back into the game, I really see whoever picks it up struggling quite a bit.
Yeah, exactly right. And I feel like what's so interesting, and partly ASOL, I feel like is really strong for two reasons. Not only does he really fit in the scaling meta, we'll see a lot of teams just opt for scaling. Even in pro play at the highest level of this game that we love, it's been seen all across the board in every single role that we're opting for scaling. And I think in Iron to Plat it usually really is a safe bet because it allows you that insurance when you don't have very good strong laners. And at the start of a tournament as well, we've got bot lane players that aren't really used to each other yet or how they want to play. So you can't really rely on absolutely dominating lanes. So you want that insurance to happen far, far later. Right? ASOL absolutely loves that, loves to scale, and is countered by what would consider really high mobility, high mechanically centric champions. Katarina is the most known counter to ASOL. Stuff like that that's not really played often, especially not at this level. So yeah, I feel like it really is, like you said, a bit of a case of are we either first picking it or are we absolutely just taking it off the table?
Hmm. I think 9 times out of 10, the safe option is to ban it, unless
Yep.
you are very confident that you're going to be able to pilot it. If you're the red side, I think you just have to ban it. You can't risk it going through. And if you're the blue side, you're kind of hoping it doesn't get banned, because then they have to spend a ban on it. Now we are wobbling a little bit, guys, because the lobby that we were in, ready to rumble, did the thing where when the lobby's open for too long, it decides it just doesn't want to exist anymore. It stops. So we are currently trying to get back into that lobby. So it will be a little bit of a delay before we do dive into our first game. So I do want to talk briefly, while we've got a little bit of spare time here, Casual, about the change of format. Because BO3's I want to say a bit more of a casual tournament in that, Iron to Platinum. I don't think I've ever actually seen a best of series as the default setting for a tournament. And I really love it.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I actually haven't seen it either. I think it's really good, at least from my perspective. I'd love to hear your take as well. For me, I really like it because it means that you're actively, from the beginning of the tournament, practicing the most important stage. And that comes with nerves. It comes with the emotional side of the game, playing from behind, not only within the game on the Rift, but also within a series. You get the ability to adapt and actually be proactive in how you want to play the game, how you want to draft for yourselves. It's kind of not like you can just bin away the first game. And it actually means that the coaches and the coaching staff for all of these teams, of which there is quite a few, need to kind of pick up the ball here. Like, this is how we're actually going to be making sure that you get a good start in these games. It's not just these fluky best of ones, right? Where, maybe someone gets their best champ. Oh, well, we forgot FF15. Like, there's multiple chances to either be dominant or to at least come back. And for me, at least, I love that because, like you said, we've never been able to see it. So we're actually treating the Iron to Plat scene with the respect that it deserves because it's been around for so long, and encouraging these players to, replicate the best of the best in how they actually want to play out their series, what this game really means when it comes to competitive.
Yeah, and for me, and one area in particular I love is the adaptation that you were mentioning. Like, yes, it shows the teams that can adapt, and I think more importantly, the teams that have strong mental fortitude will thrive
all in the head.
Because I'm sure we've all played the games where they die first in lane, and then they're like, all right, well, I'm done, let's go next. You can't do that in a competitive setting in any capacity, and B, you especially can't afford to check out in a best of series. Because even if you disastrously lose game 1, you still got game 2. You potentially have game 3. Like, you cannot afford to mentally explode. And I think over the course of BO3 tournaments, that resilience will be the most important thing when it comes to it. Like, yes, mechanical skill is always going to be a thing, but you need to be mentally resilient.
Yeah, and it's such a great skill. Like, if we actually want to be here to encourage the scene and to encourage the players to move up and into those higher brackets of play, you don't really afford it. I'm playing in a high-low team for the first time in the tournament starting on Sundays. I'm really excited about it. It's going to be my first experience, and I've noticed already that there's absolutely no room, like you said. So hopefully the mental's there for these players as we jump straight into draft. Plenty of time not only for us to talk about them, but plenty of time for the teams to talk about how they actually want to run this champ select right at midnight. So I imagine we'll see some quick bans and some quick picks as they're getting ready for this first phase.
And the first one off the board, unsurprisingly, Sejuani. She has been as a mainstay in, I would say the jungle, but she's ventured into top lane in the last couple of years. So as much as I love her, seeing her removed off the table, and the jungle pool continues to slim. Even being nerfed this patch does not save the monkey or the woman on a ball.
Yeah, I know. It's really interesting, right? I was actually just looking at that nerf list because you mentioned it earlier as we were going through and waiting for the custom to be made. And at least 4 or 5 junglers who are really, really meta right now were nerfed. And now they're all being banned again. Like, haven't these poor boys, done enough? Like, give them a break. Leave Brittany alone. Regardless, neither team interested as Jarvan taken off the table. And gosh, if one more champion gets banned from the jungle here, there's going to be some serious talk about adaptation for both Penguin, Domo, and Evo's jungler. Like, bit of a worry, but bit of a more sensible ban, I guess, there in the Zyra as well, who's shown so much recently and incredibly viable right now, I think.
Yeah, it seems that the Pixelmans aren't actually on streaming, guys, so we'll quickly describe it for you. So far, Weekend Warriors have banned Sejuani and the Jarvan on top of it, and they're looking at Caitlyn as their third ban here. Evo has, of course, got the Wukong that we mentioned earlier, the Xayah taken out as well, and now they're looking at their final ban. And I would very much like it to be something focused on that bottom lane. You were talking about the importance of that bottom lane, and there it is. The Zeri comes out, but the champion I did mention is still up and available. Aurelion Sol is a possibility. All these rower mids are untouched. And now the question
Yeah.
for Weekend Warriors is, Nova, do you feel confident enough bringing them to the fight? Or is my read on what is in this tournament completely off?
That's right. There we go. Cool. Nice. At least we got that out of the way, right? We're looking at a series, so I'm glad you've been put in your box, and then we can just continue the night happy days. No. But anyway, so both junglers taken away in this first phase. I'm not surprised they've raced to it midnight, because already both teams seriously want to look at this jungle pool and slim it down as much as possible. So safe bet during the first phase to take it away. The Weekend Warriors are going to opt for the Hecarim, which is interesting. So the champion I see Penguin Domo actually opt for a lot. I think it's decently strong. You have the option to go for more of a bruiser or a safer pick, or you can just absolutely snowball depending on the lead that you get. And of course, Vi, we'll be seeing Vi for the first time, potentially in our region, being streamed on this nerfed patch. I didn't actually take a look at the finite details of what her changes were midnight, but given how strong she's been, I imagine they were significant, and now both AD carries to follow in the Kaiser for Weekend Warriors, and actually picking up the Ashe as well. So pretty much the only things left on the table, really, given how the ban phase went out.
Yeah, they don't really. It does squeeze down the champion bit. Now, taking a quick look at the Vi changes, because we do have a little bit of time. The minimum and maximum damage on the Q, the Vault Breaker, was changed, as well as a bit of nerfing damage on the E. So just damage output has been reduced, which I don't mind, honestly. I think it's pretty good, all things considering. And now the final question is, what is going to be pick 3 here? It will be a Leona, and I love this so much, because if there's one thing Rakan sucks at dealing with, it's Leona.
Yeah, no, I really like the Leona as well. Actually guarantees you level 1 prio in this lane. And I also like their ability to now invade jungle and actually put pressure on this Hecarim, right? The last thing you want to do is allow Hecarim to fall clear, and given that Hecarim will run this game without flash as well, it makes that level 1 invade with the Vi, and especially the Ashe as well with those passive autos, even more scary. So you'd hope that Evo look to try and secure that early vision and allow their 2v2 bot lane to play out fairly safely, or at least with as much knowledge as they can, because Kaiser Rakan will be able to play these team fights so smoothly, right? Hecarim with the ability to dive in, Rakan to follow up, and then Kaiser's just free to do whatever she wants. She's got those 2 options now, right? I can play front to back and peel down the Vi and the Leona if they jump on me, or I can actually dive onto the back line, eliminate this Ashe, and then suddenly there's not a lot of threat. Right now, we're pretty much looking at the spotlight being on this Ashe so far in this first phase. And yes, there are roles to come, but given that I'd hate to see something that they're relying damage on in the top lane, because that's just not what the role's good at anymore, I worry that Evo may have, in this draft, put too many eggs in one particular basket if Weekend Warriors can execute their engage properly.
And I would love from Weekend Warriors to see more hard engage now. Let's go something basic like a Malphite or a Maokai. Well, okay, well, Malphite gets taken off the table there by Evo. But I do quite like it. It's a denial, but more importantly, engaging into that is now dangerous. You've got a Malphite you have to be worrying about. You've got a Leona. There is so much engaged from Evo that even if they're behind 10,000 gold, if they want to start a fight, every single champion that they've currently rostered is capable of doing that on their own. And I adore that ability when a team drafts like that.
Yeah, I love it as well, because not only does Malphite actually work, it really works sort of thematically with their comp. I think it's also taken it away from Weekend Warriors, because it would have been a fantastic option too. And Weekend Warriors are interesting with their hovers there. You saw them hover Yasuo for a couple seconds as well. I like the idea, scared of a potential combo in Malphite. Clearly in comps have decided we don't need it. We'll pick and make sure that Yasuo can be negated in lane, which is what Victor's really good at. Neutralizing those AD champions that want to fight you heavily with wave clear, not allowing them to actually step up and fight you, and then they'll just match tank for tank in the sign, which is totally fine. I think the most neutral, boring matchup of all time. The only scary part of it is both those tanks scale incredibly well, and now they kind of get 3 lanes together. If you really want to get into the finite of it midnight, I think Sion probably wins until about level 7, level 8. Just due to the fact that he can easily CC the Malphite because he doesn't have that level 6 power spike. But from then, I doubt we'll even see Malphite be trying to 1v1. He'll be just looking to try and use that unstoppable force to get onto any carry he possibly can. And then the Oriana round off as well. So it's a wombo for the ages, right? This Malphite and this Oriana with plenty of CC to follow. God, it's a Merc Treads if I've ever seen one, if my name's a Weekend Warrior.
Yeah, and the joy of this one is you've got 3 ball delivery systems. Leona, Vi, and Malphite are all very, very good targets to have the ball slapped on them and then send it forwards and catch multiple moments. It's exactly what we were talking about. Evo have got a nice and simple composition. It's group up as 5 monkeys and slap the other monkeys in the face with as many big sticks as you can get your hands on. And I love compositions like that because they are so hard to screw up.
Yeah.
So you look at Weekend Warriors, their composition's similar, but their ability to start the fight is what worries me a little bit. Because throwing Scion at the problem, it works, but I personally don't like it as your main form of engage. I think they're going to have to pick apart Evo rather than point at Evo and say, you're dead.
Yeah, exactly right. I feel like Weekend Warriors have drafted something that's very much just hard mode of what Evo's decided to do. And I also, if I had to critique anything in draft, is the lack of creativity as well. Both teams have pretty much just opted to match each other to and fro, right? You pick a tank while I'll pick a tank. You pick a full clearing jungler that's the main primary engage. Okay, I'll do the same thing. Mage controls in the mid, scaling AD carries, and then supports that will look to block on with each other, and whoever wins that HP trade will get that early ward. So not many different things happening in this game. And what that tells me, Midnight, is okay, well, someone's going to snowball because there's not actually any different path for how they want to play into this mid game. Both teams want to stack objectives. Both teams want to wait for those 5v5. So whoever gets that early lead, and if we know anything about Iron to Plat, these leads just come from absolutely nowhere and everywhere at the same time, especially in those first couple minutes. It's just going to be bashing your head against the wall. Do you know what I mean? That monkey clapping that little band instrument, whatever it's called, right? Like you can only do one thing and do those little flips in between. Like there's not much room to be creative here. That being said, though, the ability to snowball is there for both teams. I'm really excited to see how Evo pull off a very easy comp in terms of press that one button and fight. But once they use that one button, that's all they've got, Midnight. Then it's purely up to them to consider and to control the team fight. And that's going to be a harder position than what Weekend Warriors have to deal with. God, it's going to be explosive. I feel for you as our play-by-play tonight, Midnight. Make sure you've got those Paddles or those Strepsils close by.
See, I love games like this because you look at the compositions and they are very similar in what they are intended to do. They group up, they fight. The difference mostly is that Weekend Warriors requires a bit more finesse, a bit more precision. Yeah. And Evo, it's a lot simpler, but as a result, there's less outs. If you're behind as Evo, you have to fight. There is no playing around the side waves. There is no, maybe we can try this cheeky look. No. You team fight and you send it at them. That's your entire identity. Weekend Warriors have a bit more finesse in that they can pick people apart a little bit easier with the Rakan and the Hecarim. So I'm very interested to see which of these teams fall behind, because if Weekend Warriors fall behind, they're going to have to try and play like the Assassin's Creed of League of Legends. Whereas Evo, if they fall behind, it's basically World War I trenchline warfare for them. So that'll be very fun to see, guys. But we are going to be getting into our first game of a best-of-3 series. See who will take the early lead. Will Evo claim victory with a nice engaged composition, or will Weekend Warriors finesse bear them fruit? Don't go anywhere. We'll be back in a moment.
See you then.
And game number 1 is kicking off very calmly, unfortunately. But then again, with the team compositions, level 1 shenanigans aren't exactly on the play here, Casual. So as much as it breaks my heart to look at these teams, this is a tournament. They do need to play with a little bit of intelligence. It's not just 5. As much as I said that with 5 monkeys with a proximity alarm, you can't play the early game with 5 monkeys with a proximity alarm.
No, unfortunately not. But I really like the play from Weekend Warriors already, securing priority in this bot lane as well. Getting that mid-brush vision is also really important in terms of heavy trading. Tells me that Baki and Dads actually do want to be getting in and fighting them level 1, even though they do scale. Allowing the minions to aggro them, even if they try and drop it by entering out of vision, won't work here. So good that they get that ward, and Evo aren't even going to contest it as well, just doing our standard 5-point, which is fine. Both junglers will probably end up, unless Hecarim decides to start a minor camp, which we'll see some do. Even some Hecarims, when they do get invaded, can end up on wolves and still be relatively healthy. It's why I think the champ's so strong when it comes to their clear. So far, so good for both laners. I mean, the only real difference is that Sion didn't leash his top laner. Doesn't drag his wave either, though. So we're looking at a pretty neutral start in the top lane, which is what both teams want. And so far, they're just going to be matching each other toe-to-toe, I imagine. Where we'll probably get to pan our screens may be this bot lane, as we see Weekend Warriors still sitting out of vision eventually as they'll get there. Maybe get that early trade. We see it sometimes where Rakan Leona will just go. They just press the button, right? Like, just ignite instantly, just get in there. That real LPL style of play. But maybe they want to play for the wave as well, knowing that Sunny Jim is pathing down as well.
And I think the early game jungle movements will be quite fun because these team compositions, they are inherently violent. They choose violence as quickly as humanly possible here. So,
That's it.
and we can see that from Sunny. He's, instead of doing a standard, he's just already rushed his way to the bottom half of the map here. And I would love if he leads this into just going straight to a bot lane gank. Like, don't mess around, do the early gank, and then go for your clear. Whereas the Penguin has decided he's going to do just the standard full clear, which is exactly what you'd expect from the likes of a Hecarim.
Yeah, I think the window may be, it might be actually be a very real option. Tells me that Evo may even have the knowledge that they did ward that early brush, because this doesn't really work if Baki actually gets to ward the river. So knowing that he doesn't even have that option means that she can. Vi's pathing down now. The only worry is that Evo played too passively, and so they've got the wave in midnight. So now it's just going to bounce back to them and actually leaves Hecarim now with the option. So think like chess, guys, back and forth. Evo have made their move. Unfortunately, it hasn't worked. Weekend Warriors play decent defense, just out laning in the 2v2 with what their plan is. Now they get to sit back, and Whisper and Captain Aggressive are going to need to be incredibly careful, or even call Vi back down to support them, which is not what you want. Like you said, you want to choose violence over just covering for someone, but maybe fine on Evo's team comp, and the reason I say that is because of that level 6. That is the hugest power spike of all time. Like, I cannot believe how much their draft relies on their ults. Like, it's actually kind of wild. They're really not functional without them.
And then we call back to their ban phase. They banned Silas round 2. They knew this was going to be a possibility. Nova might be in a little bit trouble. It's a 2v2 that Nova flashes as just Purple Smurf. Penguin dives in, is feeling confident. Why shouldn't he? He's got plenty of health to play with there. Sunny is forced to flash over the wall, but it will maybe be enough. That Purple, though, is going to go down there. Penguin will claim first blood. Now, the question is, do they have the time to hunt down that Sunny? It looks like not, and instead, he will get out. But Purple going down super early. At least they get a tier, but still, that hurts.
Yeah, no, it definitely does hurt. I think Purple Smurf very, very quick to flash out of something that wasn't actually going to hit him in the first place. Even if he does get stunned there, it allows Sunny Jim to actually come in and CC the Hecarim. The fact that that went so poorly for Evo is because Penguin was able to run around doing whatever he wants. And we talked about how ultimates are so important. Yes, you could argue that for Weekend Warriors, but with Hecarim's passive, the ability to ghost early in fights gives you an incredible amount more AD than anyone else. And so that damage just proved to be far too much for Purple Smurf and Sunny Jim to handle, and they're going to find themselves on the back foot. Evo, I think they're not completely out of it just yet, though it is pretty terrible when it comes to this mid lane matchup, and especially now Hecarim having all prior that he wants to even walk into the enemy jungle. Both flashes burned for both the mid and jungle duo of Evo. I'm not too concerned, only because they still are able to play for these big team fights come their ultimates. And especially Hecarim, you might have a lead, but you ain't got no flash, buddy. And oh boy, no flash into Orianna, Vi, Malphite. Good luck.
Yeah, but that's where what we call the Onslaught of Shadows, the ultimate from Hecarim, it's not a flash, but it's as close enough to a flash as Penguin's going to get access to this game. But he's in a great position so far, a nice CS lead over his jungle opponent there. Let's call it a significant gold lead. I think that's putting it quite nicely there. And he hasn't even recalled, but he doesn't need to, because we saw both Sunny and Penguin walk on top of wards. So both teams are very aware where both junglers are, and that's why you see Dad on the Kai'Sa recalling it. It's like, I know Vi's on the bot side, I know our Hecarim has no interest in fighting, bye-bye.
Yeah, it's about 800 gold right now, just check the graphs, and it's really decent because, like I said, it's only going to now increase. We talked about that snowball earlier. Incredibly fruitful will be just that one kill. You wouldn't imagine it, and even Baki getting very close to stopping the base there. Actually did. Thought he was going to go for the Leona, opts for the AD carry instead. So that's really nice. Nova doesn't have flash, and Vi is looking.
Yeah, and Nova does have access to that ultimate, but will it be enough? The shockwave comes in, and Nova just goes down. No wards, no vision, no chance to really play that one.
Yeah, I love it. What a nice return for Evo as well. Not just sacrificing absolutely everything after one botched play. May look for more.
Penguin and Sunny butting heads, but the issue is Penguin, as much as I think Penguin would be like, yeah, I kind of want this, not only is Purple there, Captain Aggressive decided he was going to just visit mid lane on a casual sabbatical around the map.
Yeah, no, it's really good. So it's actually just all fact that Wisp and Captain Aggressive managed to get this 2v2 back into their hands, opting for the reset, which means that Leone can run straight mid. And I like Penguin's awareness there as well. Like, you're exactly right. I definitely beat you, Vi. So he actually has the awareness to be like, something's up, something's fishy. I better dodge out of it, because that could have just been first Drake straight away if Ekram actually did ended up getting baited, as we see some dance moves from Swelfie looking very swifty. In the top laners, look, it's the most neutral thing you're ever going to see, right? Like, you can slap each other, you can get your wet noodles out. You also probably just want to play for the wave as well. Decent damage, though. Hold on.
I mean, I don't think he can kill. Pokey has Flash, has Unstoppable Onslaught. If he plays it correctly like this, Flash out one, he should be fine. Yep, he's fine here. Surely.
Oh my god.
So Swelfie has to be careful here.
Scared.
He's got the minions, he gets the kill. He does not die on the back end of that one, and his team picks up the dragon. Excuse you? You have no right to do that.
No, that was some pretty illegal stuff we saw. Pretty much all based on Pookie going for the right turn. I liked it. I liked what I saw from him. Unfortunately, Min, that Sion wasn't actually aggroing the turret when he did that. So he's used every single ability to turn that 1v1 while he doesn't have that main source of damage in his turret actually active on the play. So Swelfie had a lot of patience to make that play work, making sure he waited for his cooldowns, using the flash to instantly get out of that last turret shot that would have found lethal. So overall, well played. Definitely could have been some slight fixes in terms of our micro there, but still really, really nice, because any lead you can get in such a neutral farm lane is great. It's basically a free gift. It's like, I didn't really need this, I didn't ask for it, but yeah, I'll take it. And so Swelfie is going to look really, really nice coming into these team fights, and how good that he'll have such a strong carry in the Hecarim to play around as they enter this mid game.
And that'll be a huge problem in a way, because who is realistically meant to deal with a durable Sion? Because I don't really like Vi is the only person I can look at, because yes, while the changes to Ashe a bit ago did make her a bit better in like the crit damage build, you still don't want to be throwing it into the likes of a Sion. So we'll see who has to deal with that. Of course, that is what we can clearly define as a later game problem, because right now the question that has to be asked for Evo is, where do we go next? Because you cannot just let this game continue the way it is.
Yeah, what's your answer? I think to me as well, can we even play for Herald now that Malphite's got no flash, got no ultimate for the next sort of 10 seconds? Maybe we rotate up for that. We actually see Captain Aggressive right now sitting in the bot lane trying to secure vision. I'm not too sure why, because Dragon's long gone. See you later. Hey, cool butterfly. That was pretty cool. I don't know if that was a Rakan thing or a Rift thing, but anyway, let's appreciate it. Love butterflies. Moving on. Yeah, we're securing vision in the wrong places for me right now, Evo, and it tells me that they just want to wait for next drag. And it's kind of like, okay, you can, but the CS leaders you mentioned, Midnight, it's only getting bigger. There's only more scaling to come from this Weekend Warriors side. I don't think you can sort of sit back and just cop it. You've actually got to show some signs of life, and it's either going to be through a gank, it's going to be through layering CC onto the Victor. Yes, he has flash, but if you layer it perfectly, I doubt he can get through the damage before he can flash away. Like, it's got to be something. We actually see Vi on the Herald now, so maybe they are tuning in, and will hopefully not get punished for this, as Hecarim is on the opposite side of the map.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's anything that Weekend Warriors can do about this Herald take. So the question then becomes, well, where do you go with this Herald? Because as you're saying, you look across the lines of CS, you're down in CS as Evo, you're in the bottom lane, you're down in CS in the mid lane, kind of, and you're definitely down in the top lane. So you need to use this, and I think you need to use it in the next couple of minutes, because turret plate gold, I think, is how you get back into this.
Oh, dude, big time. We've got to look for those, especially before bounties or any things like that come up and we actually don't have plate-ins. And hold on.
Ghost is so dude, run, buddy. Can you get out alive there? The charm, the dash forward, Dad throws himself forward. The TP coming in is simply not going to matter as Penguin gets out of dodge. And I love the idea from Smurf, but it was just like the Wisp died so quickly.
Yeah, he really did, and that was without the Unstoppable Onslaught actually landing as well. So, yeah, it got Hecarim in a really nice position to start layering the damage onto Ashe, but one really crucial layer of CC that kind of guarantees everything else did miss, and yet still Wisp kind of looked like we just couldn't play. Ops for using the flash and the cleanse still didn't matter. Yeah, worrying signs for Evo. I wonder if that's a bit of a premonition of how these team fights may go. Like, if the Leona's just going to be ignored, if the Oriana, it doesn't really matter if we get there. If we can't even turn the fights afterwards just due to them being so fast and mobile. I don't know, scary and signs for Evo as their AD carry does fall, and this is what I meant in Draft Midnight when it comes to eggs in the basket, right? Like, fair enough, soul carries are okay, but you're really putting on a lot of pressure for this early game to pan out great, and while Evo's a relatively new team too, outside of Wisp and Aggressive, so maybe my point is a bit moot, laning's not the strongest is my point. So you really are risking something that already isn't going to be as optimal as ever. So hopefully Evo can recover. We still haven't seen that wombo combo yet. It's really just a matter of who they choose to burst down, and you'd hope they pick the right target, because my worry is once you've used those ultimates, now what?
The answer is we die. If you do not get a big enough lead using that combo, you're not going to have the damage output. Unfortunately, I hate to be critical, but that is simply the way that you've just drafted your composition. So what we need to see now is this Herald, and I think this is absolutely the right call. You need to drop this Herald mid. The problem is that you're not allowed to, because Baki is there, Penguin is there, and I don't think you win this 3v3. So, like, the one place you need to drop it, you're not allowed to, as Nova gets caught in the shockwave, and Sunny goes in? What? You're not allowed to win this one, Evo. Sunny is nuked down mid into Pokey, comes down, gets a nice knock up in the Baki though, uses that early bought stopwatch to buy plenty of time, and now Weekend Warriors are here in force. And as we were saying, Evo needed to use that, somehow, unfortunately, used most of the cooldowns, which were important, and didn't even get a kill on the back of it.
God, it's a worry now, because that's just going to be second drag secured, because they don't really have any more resources to now fight. They have to concede that. Didn't even get the kill on Baki with a really crucial purchase of the stopwatch as well. Allows him to play so up front, and this was my worry initially, is that Pookie's never going to be able to actually get himself with his crucial ult before Sion can get there with his ultimate. Like, he's always going to have priority, especially now that he's got that 20 CS lead and that solo kill. Like, so now that your top laner can't even play the game and get in those fights at the time you need to, it means, and it allows Baki and Penguin to just run into these fights and just pick their target. It looked like there was some promising sides, potentially, as Herald is spawned in the top lane. I don't know if they can get this turret. Maybe a couple plates. Might be all you can get, because plates were just about to go as well. So pretty clutch there. Get yourself some amount of gold. This game by no means is over midnight, even though Weekend Warriors are 2 dragons up. We still haven't seen that 5v5, but gosh, right now, Weekend Warriors just seem like they're so much more concerned about how they want to play these fights. They're so much more knowledgeable about where they need to go and where to start them. Just seems like it's a team with a plan, and then a team who's pretty lost on how to make a plan.
Yeah, and in the early game, you don't have a lot of times to make decisions, and I think Weekend Warriors are making very, very good ones. They saw that, hey, Sunny showed himself mid really weirdly. I think they're going to drop Herald here, and immediately everyone rotated with the exception of the Kai'Sa. So then it was a 4v4. They have enough of a lead where Evo wasn't able to land their key abilities at the right time, and then it's like, well, okay, we've taken 2 dragons. Sure, they're taking a Rift Herald, but their Rift Herald was dropped in, I would argue, the worst possible place, because look who got the gold for it. Yeah. Sunny and Pokey. Yeah. The 2 people, I would argue, don't need the gold.
Yeah, that's right. And oddly, Midnight, and I hate to make you upset here, even though Malphite did cop the Herald with plating, Sion is still over 1,000 gold in front of his individual laner as well. So not super ideal for Evo, as, oh, hold on.
This is just trading.
Scrap.
That is pure posturing. I love it.
It is. I love it, right? That's what we want to see. We want the egos to come out. We want those plays to be made. Look, regardless, my point is, it's like, it just seems like a lose-lose situation, and such is life at this point, but not so early on in the tournament, not so early on in this series. Do we want to see Evo so mechanically and stylistically outclassed in this early game? Look, we haven't even hit 18 minutes. We haven't even hit that 17-minute mark. I mean, they can FF only if all 5 of them agree, and right now it's not an idea that they seem very keen for, is they're trying to plug the damage. They're trying to keep their boat afloat. But individually, it's not just the Sion. It's everywhere, Midnight. Hold on. Maybe a bit far, but...
Oh, no, Sunny's in trouble, though. Because I don't see how he's meant to outrun Penguin. Penguin's got a level lead. Penguin has Ghost if he needs it, but he doesn't even need it. A solo kill in the jungle. And if that doesn't sum up the problems that Evo currently have, they have no winning lanes, and their jungler isn't even allowed to exist in proximity to his own jungle.
Yeah, I mean, weirdly for me, what just happened, I feel like should have happened at least 5 times by this point, right? As soon as you get that early kill, you can do that whenever you want, but better late than never, I guess, for Weekend Warriors, because there's no real time limit to this game now. They know how much they scale. Pookie at least entertaining us with his late in with a little bit of a dance. I mean, that Malphite skin is just iconic, isn't it? He's absolutely gorgeous up there in the top lane. But look, every single player right now is really on the back foot, and it's not what you need, because when you are playing for behind, you want at least to in comms be like, okay, at least we can play for this, or at least this person has an item spike coming soon, or this or that, but barely anyone's got a mythic. The only person who's got a mythic is Vi. Baki looks incredibly aggressive.
Oh, aggressive. That is beautiful, and that's why you take that matchup. Rakan is mobile. It doesn't matter how mobile he is if you punch him in the face with a shield that stuns him in place. That was really
just
nice.
Bonk him on the head. Yeah, no, really nice that he can't really get past that Leona. So we saw the ability to do so when Penguin was actually there, but in the 2v2, they have the ability to negate that engage, which is also important, man. Like, can you only imagine the damage if Dads and Baki were able to actually fight this engages? That's the, like, 4th, 5th time I've seen Baki go for that play to cancel, and here comes Sion.
That was disgusting damage. And Sion is now the victim of a lot of it, but he doesn't care. This is Sion. He's going to flash. The turret still goes down, and now they're looking for the fight there. Loki dies onto Baki into the backline there, but the Rakan still gets out alive, and the only man to die, Swifty, almost. Oh my god, he tracked it as well. That is illegal. As that is skirmishing on the backside. Now, Baki needs to be careful if he wants to get involved, because there is not a lot of help here. Does it get the knockup, gets the dive back, the punch does connect their Dad, so turns invisible and runs away, and now the backup has a red Penguin is here onto Sunny. Sunny at least has to try to do something. He tried, but he goes down in a beautiful double knockup there from Baki, who still does not go down. This Rakan is dancing on the edge of life and death, and damn does he dance it well.
Okay, who's got the quickest hotline to the police? We need to call them right now, because what we just witnessed was completely illegal, and it starts with I would argue, maybe my favorite Sion ult of Iron to Plat history. I love how we're talking about, oh, great job by Leona to disengage that fight. Nothing's going to happen to bot lane, right? In comes the pain train as he jumps himself straight in between the tier 1 and tier 2, and so much damage laid on Ashe meant that, yeah, Evo can back up the numbers and go for this Sion, but it means that Wisp has to play so conservatively, isn't able to land as many autos as he could, and actually allows himself to get traded. Doesn't even find the kill as well, and that's why he died, was his team actually trying to give him the kill. Speaking of kills, Swelfie might have found himself a juicy one.
What was that passing away from his target?
Oh no.
Pebble's gonna get out no issues. That was just like part. I understand the logic of, oh, I need to get out of the queue, but also just don't. Why are you running away from home? ET needs to go home. You need to go home. ET is what you need to do.
It's right, and it's so hard as well, because it's like you've got to make a decision. You're left or right, but then sometimes in your head, because I've played against a million times in my time, it's like, all right, I think I can make it this way. Oh shit, I can't. Now I can go back. Oh no, now I'm absolutely screwed. And then you just end up copping the whole thing. And very scary. A 0 dealt damage Sion right now is so far in the lead that even their carries need to be mortally afraid.
Oh no, Jimmy, no! This is just bullying is what this is. He just wants his rep buff, man. Dad will take that one, so thank you very much. Also, on the note of 0 damage Sion, I don't think Wisp would agree with you, given he lost about 70% of his HP from the Sion ultimate.
That's it. 0 damage built Midnight. Okay, I may just quickly clarify. He is a... That's it, right? Like, you know that meme with Ornn where it's like he's the mage assassin necromancer, like wizard, like he's all of that and more Sion as well. And it's why, like, people used to say that about Ornn, but it's not just my Ornny boy anymore. There are plenty of tanks in the meta right now that are incredibly strong, and you need your carries to be incredibly fed to deal with this insane frontline. It's not just Sion as well. Like, this Hecarim will opt for, after the cleaver, you imagine something like a Death Dance, and then suddenly that initial engage, the ability to burst and pick down a target, you don't have one anymore. So now what do? You just allow Kai'Sa to run around free hitting anyone she wants, because you can't actually get in range of the tanks and actually knock them down. It's an incredibly thick and fast way to win this game, and this is what I meant by the snowball, right? Both teams want to do exactly the same thing. So if you start having your thing outdone by the other thing, suddenly you don't have a thing to thing around anymore. Does that make sense? I feel like that's some pretty high elo analysis right there. Thing, the thing, the thing.
Yeah, you do the thing, and in this case, the thing that Weekend Warriors has done is they've built an 8,000 gold lead at 20 minutes.
Pretty
now,
wild.
I don't know if it's still a thing anymore. I remember a couple years ago, we called it the mark. 10,000 gold is the point of irrecoverability. It is impossible to recover from 10k gold deficit. We're nearly there, and this game has only been going for 20 minutes. This is painful, and it's come through the back of the laning phase. It hasn't been, oh, Weekend Warriors have made a brilliant recovery team fight. They've just outlaned you in every capacity.
Yeah, we were talking about it as we were loading in as well, was the worry, I guess, even though drafts do look nice for both teams, is just that individual play. What did he do?
What did he do wrong? Has Jimmy said something in all chat and I just haven't seen it? Because, oh my god, this is just bully the jungler. That's all this is.
It really is. No, it is. And what other choice do Weekend Warriors have? Hold on, speaking of bullying.
Goodbye, Wisp.
Goodbye.
Actually, wait, no, Wisp turned this around. What?
Oh, what a legend. Oh my god. And we doubted him midnight. I feel gross. I've eaten 5 boxes of KFC after casting that play because we just called it, said, all right, Wisp, you're dead. No interest in that. Finds a beautiful outplay, and it's pretty much because Ekram used everything else to just punish Sunny Jim. Maybe not the greatest choice in hindsight now, because Evo's only way back into this game, we're still not at that point of no return yet. We're incredibly close, mind you, is Wisp being strong. Because Ash, slight buffs, nothing too crazy, is incredibly good at melting down tanks. And even look at the build as well. It's going to go for on hit, going to build that Bork next as well. You know, I worry just ever so slightly because now Weekend Warriors kind of are able to just run around, do whatever they want. But if Ash does get a lead, pressure's on to then melt down that very specific target. Because if Peel is able to be enacted on the side of Evo, I don't know. Maybe there's a world. Maybe I'm too optimistic, man. I mean, people tell me that sometimes, but kills like that, giving over cheap leads, it's not something that Weekend Warriors can afford to do at this stage in the game.
Because it's little mistakes that are going to punish you here, but I don't think it's going to matter too much because now we have 5 monkeys and a proximity alarm to the dragon.
Here we go.
This is where the 5v5 team fights, and if the Wombo doesn't land here from Evo, they've got nothing. Hell, even if it does land, I don't know if it's going to be enough, but it has to land on priority targets. Dad and Nova. You need to catch both of these carries with your combo, otherwise you have lost the fight. So, and look at what way we're going to play this. They're backing up, they're saying, we don't have to do this, we're going to go mid. Mid lane is pushing in our favor. They're actually sending Nova and Dad to take the mid lane inhibitor. They're trading Dragon for inhibitor, and why not? This is the first Dragon for Evo.
Yeah, you can even rotate yourself towards top side and get at least like 2k, 2.5k worth gold of experience if you actually manage to get both of these structures. Without a wave, they may struggle, although Penguin... Wait, what happened to Kai'Sa?
Wait, did Dad... He got executed on the turret.
He died? What happened to Kai'Sa?
He got executed on the turret.
Oh my god, no.
I believe that's what we call a free reset.
Yeah, good point. Worth, actually.
That's all it is. It's a free reset, right?
Yeah, yeah. I'm definitely getting rid of my bounty, right, guys? Right?
Yeah, they can't get the 260, 650 gold off me if the turret gets it first.
Yeah. Oh, jeez. Well, look, let's count the positives, right? At least that dragon is secured by Evo. So they dodged the soul being taken. Off late resets as well. Evo will cop the turret bounty in the mid lane too, as we see some more wet noodles up into the top lane. And little to do with this Scion. Little damage to actually get down when you're not here, which means that you pretty much secure wave priority wherever they decide to put Swelfie. So whether they put him bot side, if that's the next objective they want to go for, because there are open inhibitors practically both in the mid lane and effectively the top lane, given that Baron's about to be spawned, and that's where they'll place their vision now as we see them walk in. I worry that who hasn't reset is now Evo. They do walk into Scion though.
Yeah, Shreddy has to be a little careful here. Actually, no, he doesn't. He needs to bait because the rest of Weekend Warriors are on the way. And Baki, it does get stunned up. He does get the charm down. The Lies combo is coming through. But it does not catch the priority targets of Weekend Warriors. Sunny dives into the backline alone. And the rest of his team can only watch as 2 of their members, well, drop it first. Pokey will be joining his team in the grave.
Yeah, no, Evo actually played the start of that fight really decently well, to be honest, but it's just that gold lead gap at this point, right? So it's too little, too late, unfortunately for me. I do like the signs of life in terms of how they're playing these team fights. I feel like if you had to say anything about this game, it really is just the laning. that needed to get a lot stronger to allow them to not be so significantly weak when it comes time to team fight. And speaking of this final fight, maybe Weekend Warriors can look for the end here. I mean, Swelfie is getting so much value out of his Mythic that he's in so incredibly tanky with such little health. They could look for more. Baron is up though, so potentially they take that much more safer option. Fair enough, that's fine. We edge closer to that point of no return, Midnight. I love that phrase. Maybe they'll take a few little snacks on their way there. It's just hard for me, right? Because I actually see Evo play that really decently well. Pookie does an incredible job of restraint, holding on to his ultimate just until the right time to find both Victor and the Kai'Sa, which is something that you mentioned earlier. Wisp, unfortunately, is just so terrified, and he's every right to be of these incredibly scary members. Someone we haven't talked about because he's very much been more of a facilitator than maybe very action-centric this game is the Victor. Right now is just under, pretty much even in CS, sitting at 4-1 and 2 right now. It cannot be understated his importance in these team fights. We saw it then with his silence as well. Even though Baki had a bit of a botched engage on the Rakan, that silence proved huge dividends, allowing Ashe to actually be rotated out of the fight, meaning that their damage, even though was incredibly caught by the Malphite, there was no follow-up. And without follow-up on a Malphite ult, all you're doing is going for a quick trip up into the sky. So really well played by Weekend Warriors mid lane. I really appreciate seeing that in the fight, the knowledge to know what my job is. Don't need to play like the Kai'Sa. All I need to do is make sure that Dads is able to carry these fights. And so far, so good in terms of their plan, as Baron's now on the lighter side.
Yeah, and they will secure it, no contest. Evo just out of position to do it, and this should be the death throes of Evo, unfortunately. They are just so far behind, and I like to think that for the last couple minutes, they've been thinking to themselves, how do we avoid this for game number 2? Remember, this is a best of series, so this is something they have to be doing. And the answer, I think, is early game aggression. You can't just sit back and play against Weekend Warriors standardly. This game has proved that. You need to pick an aggressive jungler. Go for a Lee Sin, a Jarvan, something that defaults to violence from minute 1 till the game ends. Because right now, you are lying on the ground, bleeding out. This is the final time to go in. They've nuked Nova down, but the rest of the team is up and running. Jim will trade his life 1-for-1 on that one, and the rest of Evo is now scattering. But the mobility from the Weekend Warriors is more than enough. Wisp does so much damage, but it is simply not enough. Dad will pick himself up a quadra kill. Swifty denies his teammate the Penta by grabbing one of his home here, and game number 1 of our best of series is resolvedly going into the hands of the Weekend Warriors.
Yeah, well played to them. Very well-deserved win, and puts themselves in front of this series with Evo the ones to try and find a response here. Jeez, what a performance out of Weekend Warriors Midnight. How strong, how calculated, how together it seemed they were as a team in executing that. Yeah, tickled me, completely impressed with the roster. Yeah,
and a solid showing in this game. I mean, and the joy is, in a tournament like this, oftentimes teams are going to watch your game and try and pick apart your play. If I'm looking to try and take down Weekend Warriors and using this game as my basis of result, I'd say, well, they can lane pretty damn well. That is what I took away from that game. So this is why you need to challenge them early. You need to hit them hard. Again, I would love a change up from Evo over style. You're already down 0-1. Change up your style. Again, just go full aggro.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're completely spot on in how they chose to play out the early game. Isn't going to work into what I consider just better mechanical and individual players. Now, the risk with Weekend Warriors is, and the reason why I consider them really close to being favourites of this tournament, is that they've got a lot of experience together. So they can actually take those individual leads and do something with them. There will be teams that we will be seeing on this stream that will get insane leads individually, and come time to play as a team, you've got no idea, right? So it's incredibly scary. And even as we dodge over to these stats and try and actually really assess the damage of both of these teams, Malphite had pretty much the highest number of DPS damage for his side. Like, that's a scary stat. And the whole game I'm hearing in my ear, the whole game, the Malphite. Okay, Midnight. Try and dissect that one.
Well, that's simply the fact that when you have 2 wet noodles and you slap someone with it for 20 minutes, you're going to have the highest damage. Because I don't think there was a time we looked at those 2 top laners and they weren't just slapping each other. Again, it's irrelevant slapping to a lot of it. It's just a matter of Sion is stronger than Malphite. Malphite just struggles to trade in that side lane, so that's why he's able to get that insane damage output. And you look at the damage output, the Malphite is second highest in the game.
Yeah.
And that's just because the tanks trade.
Yeah, exactly right. And it also, I think, on a second part to that is because the fights were so quick. And it comes down to that snowball as well. So, yeah, Dads on this Kai'Sa was able to actually get in there and play around in the backline. But so far, there wasn't a lot of really concern for the AD carry when it came to even peeling this Kai'Sa or actually getting him into these fights because they were practically over by the time that ult was used. By the time he got onto the backline, Wisp was very much out of the fight, unable to interact. So was this Orianna as well, 0-2 and 3 ending that game. Not much for him to do, unfortunately, for Purple Smurf. So really, I'm not surprised at the damage numbers. I am very, very surprised at how much of a stomp it was. But look, we did call it that it was going to be a snowball, and Weekend Warriors delivered certainly on that part.
Yeah, and as we're talking about game number 2 now for Evo, they need to ask themselves the question, how do you recover this game? I've given my thoughts on it. I think you just go full aggro. You may lose in 15 minutes, but I would say losing in 15 minutes trying to play aggressive is better than bleeding out on the ground in 20 minutes. Like, if you were there, if you were in Evo's position casual, what would you do?
No, I completely agree. No, you're spot on. Like, show some life, right? Show some creativity. Actually get into their face. I don't, and I hate to say this, I think, Weekend Warriors do have good individual players, but I don't see this as a case of great laning, more than just really, really weak laning coming out of Evo, and that's not any flame. That just shows me that there was no actual interaction or proactivity within these individual matchups. They didn't try anything. They were all just playing for the wave. Now, for mid lane, I could probably excuse that because of the champions that they were picked, but there are plenty of opportunities on both sides of the map for the junglers of Evo to actually look towards punishing something, to do something, go for it. Like, I don't think Weekend Warriors are this very, very scary team. In fact, I don't think any team in this tournament are. We're looking at a really, really even slate when it comes to both Group A and Group B. So I think Evo hopefully aren't too tilted and can build themselves up, buff them up, give themselves a bit of confidence, because you have every right to win this series. But right now, Weekend Warriors are looking so far ahead. Maybe it's that experience that provides them the confidence that these newer players may not have in Evo right now. We're very early on in the series. We're very early on in the tournament. Maybe this is just experimentation mode, pardon me. But yeah, I agree with you. Signs of life out of Evo, hopefully, to come. I think it does start in draft. I don't see the bans that they did actually mattering in terms of what they opted for in the 5v5. They weren't banning champions that actually mattered in team fights or actually wanted to even engage in team fights. So maybe you take away some of those really, really strong carries that Weekend Warriors opted for. I'm thinking the Scion. I'm thinking even the Hecarim. If we know we're going to lose the individual jungle matchup, let's not give him a champion that snowballs as heavily as Hecarim and also has the proactivity to secure those early Drakes. Things like that, I think Evo need to consider if they want to bring themselves back to 1-1 in this series.
Yeah, a lot of things to take into mind. And again, they've got at least one game to do it. Maybe two. But of course, that comes down to if they can win game number 2 in a BO3 series. So we will be going, guys, to a short little break. But when we come back, game number 2, Evo needs to redeem themselves, or they will be going, I'd say going home. They're already probably home, but they will be going offline a little earlier than intended. So guys, do not go anywhere. We'll be back in just a moment.
Oh my God. Yeah. See you then.